This is Centered, where faith meets everyday life. Our hope is to invite you into a better story, a story where you're made new through Jesus, living with God-given purpose, and experiencing peace, joy, and freedom. Together, we'll explore what it means to keep Jesus at the center of where we live, work, and play, bringing beauty, meaning, and renewal to every part of our lives. Thank you for joining us. Here are your hosts, David and Ben.
Hey everybody, welcome to Centered, where faith meets real life. I'm Ben, and I'm joined by
David.
What's up, man?
How's it going, dude?
It's going okay. I'm a little under the weather. Been
Yeah.
fighting a cold for
can hear it
a
in
week
your
or so.
voice.
Yeah, I didn't get to sing today in church.
That was like an audible. Like
Yeah.
you were supposed to lead worship.
Yeah,
this week.
that was the plan. Chris Lord stepped up.
He stepped
saved the
up.
day.
Man, he did good,
Yeah.
dude. He did. Proud of him. Glad he was
Yeah.
able to do that. But yeah, he wasn't supposed to. He didn't find out until like Tuesday,
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Wednesday. Yeah,
Good
I think I
for him.
finally caved in. I don't like.
You didn't wanna-
I
you
wanted
didn't
to do
wanna.
it, but
Let go.
yeah, it was a good day.
I think I told you on Monday.
Yeah.
I was
think
like,
so.
dude, don't worry about it. Just have him do it. And you're like, oh, well,
I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And I wasn't.
Typical
fine.
dude.
Yeah,
Typical dude.
Yeah. And then someone asked me, "Did you go to the
What
doctor?"
type of sick person are you? Are you like a insufferable, like I can't take care of myself, or do you try to muscle through it?
Generally, I try to muscle through it. I'm not like, like the caricature of like the husband who just like
Yeah.
is so whiny and curled up, and that's not really me. Like, I mean, Lauren likes to, she'll get stuff for me, but I don't actually like to be bothered at all. I just want to be alone,
Oh, yeah.
which is not normal for me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, just
feel
leave me
that.
alone, and I don't want to talk to anyone. Don't text me, don't email me. I don't want to talk to you. I just want to sleep.
Yeah.
And I slept a ton, like 10
Good.
hours a night
Your body needed it.
every night. So
Well, we got a big week, so hopefully you'll be able to get some rest. And man, Easter Sunday's like Super Bowl for the church, so
it's
that's
big
big
day.
game day, man.
Yeah, and we always pick like the big songs, and you can't fake it.
All right. So we're even doing this podcast on Sunday
We are.
instead of Monday.
That's different.
Yeah, a little different.
Yeah, it's real fresh.
It is super fresh, but almost too fresh.
I know. I didn't get to usually
Yeah.
I like sit on things,
Totally.
and think about it, and so this will be an experiment.
Yeah, I don't even know what I said, let alone think about all the things I should have said
Yeah, it didn't say.
or shouldn't say.
Yeah. Well, hey, before we jump into that,
Yeah.
I grabbed. We've been asking for reviews,
Oh.
and so I grabbed. We have a handful, not a lot.
Oh, you're talking
we'd like
about-
some more reviews
Yeah,
for the podcast.
For the podcast.
We'd like some more reviews, and
Okay.
but here's one from PTA 14 on Apple
Okay.
Podcasts. It says,
PTA.
I love Pastor David's weekly sermons and Pastor Ben's worship at Mosaic. To get a deeper dive and in a more personal and intimate setting is an awesome addition to my week. And it was a 5-star review. So thank you, PTA 14.
Thank you, PTA 14.
Yeah.
That's what we like to hear, man.
Yeah. So if you want to get a shout out, leave a review. We might just read your review
read it.
on the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
it
love
helps get the word out. So
Dude, that's awesome.
yeah. So let's today, what are we talking about today?
Man, we're finishing up our Make Room series on the church. And I thought it was a unique way to end the series. And, the whole series has been like an Undercover Lent series where we're looking at, hey, how do we make room for God in these very real parts of our lives, And oftentimes we think that church is the most obvious place where God is, but man, if we're really, really honest, sometimes it's the place where we crowd him out the most.
Yeah. No, it's true, because it's like an easy way to just hide behind the name of God.
Yeah.
Without actually like really like giving of ourselves and like investing in what we're doing and putting into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, man, I think a lot of people that I talk to have legitimate church hurt where they've like experienced something in the church and they don't know how to they don't know how to reconcile that, because like church, church is supposed to be the place where X, Y, and Z,
Safe
happens.
place,
Yeah, a safe place, place where people love and acceptance and don't judge and, all those types of things. But then it can quickly become a place of some of our greatest hurt. And, and some of that's on us. Like, I think we project things on Christians too,
Sure.
they can't live up to or whatever. But in the other place, I think that Christians live a lot more like the world than they'd like to admit, and so.
Right. No, and I think, it probably goes without saying, but we should say it anyways. Like, for those that have experienced church hurt, like we have a lot of empathy for that. I think each of us have experienced church hurt in different ways. Yeah. And that's a very real thing. And the sad thing about church hurt is the church is supposed to be this space and the people that draw us near to God. But when we have such horrible experiences, it's actually the thing that oftentimes pushes us or gets us to push away from God.
Yeah, for sure.
So a really important topic.
Very important. And I think it's important for us, both in the church to recognize how how the way we represent God has an impact on others. But then also, for people outside of the church who maybe look, are onlookers and see hypocrisy and things like that, to know that, not all churches, churches are trying to have these conversations. We are trying to figure out what it looks like to represent Jesus well and be a community of people who imperfectly try to, live like Jesus lived and do the things that Jesus did on the earth.
Yeah, no, it's good. So with that, okay. I hear we have a drop for this.
Okay.
It's the cutting room floor, so it's going to fit in right here. So good.
It must have been good.
Must be good. I don't know. We'll find out when we get to hear it later.
Totally.
So yeah, what didn't make the cut? You wanted to talk about it, but man, the keys just start playing.
They start playing.
Time's up. What do we do?
I think honestly, if we were to, I'm sure we're going to respond to some of those things, but the 4 shifts for healthy church, just as a reminder, was that hypocrisy to honesty, individualism to community, consumerism to cruciformity, and unresolved conflict to unity. And it was really the 4th one that I didn't have a ton of time to get through, that I mentioned it but didn't talk about it. But this idea about one of the biggest barriers to healthy church is we live in a culture that has an inability to resolve conflict. Yeah. And man, I've seen it in my time. I've been, I've been a leader in churches for almost 25 years now. So in a long time, and I very rarely see conflict resolved well, and reconciliation happen, at least in the way the Bible presents it. Or Jesus talks about it even.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's funny. I was, as you were, preaching, I was literally thinking, I wonder if this was going to be the thing that you brought, because I think it is so incredibly prevalent in the church world. And you touched on it in the message about the idea that, like, man, if I have a problem with someone, dude, there's 10 churches I can just, like, I can throw something and hit a church. Like, I don't have to think about finding another church. And not to minimize, like, I know finding the right church is hard and all that, but like, there are options. And so in a world with a sea of options, the option we're least likely to choose is the hard path of reconciliation and like dealing with conflict.
For sure. It's much easier just to, take your toys and go home than have to, go through the messiness of like hurt and restoration and forgiveness and all the things that are very, very hard, which the point right before him is moving from consumerism to cruciformity, having a cross-shaped life. And in order to resolve conflict, especially when you've been wounded, is you have to absorb the offense. And that's the most cross-shaped thing that we can do. Because even if someone legitimately is sorry, the pain has still happened.
Right.
The
It's
offenses still happen.
Yeah.
So it's not like a sorry magically takes the offense away. Whatever it is, a harsh word, or if you use someone for your own gain, or you embarrass someone, or whatever the situation is that happened, the offense has already happened, and reconciliation requires one party to absorb the offense.
Right.
That's the only way that real forgiveness actually happens. Is it's not like you can't magically take stuff away. So, it's just a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to absorb an offense. And there's a lot of pretty crappy things that have happened to people in the church, from emotional to spiritual abuse to physical abuse to, all kinds of
terrible,
awful,
unthinkable
things.
Yeah.
So.
No, absolutely. And I think you touched on this in the message also, but like the idea that we love the idea of forgiveness until we're the one required to forgive.
Right.
Like, and that's true of everything. Like I have more grace for myself. I know why I didn't do the thing I did. I know what my intentions were. I can explain away any offense for myself. But when someone offends me, that's a whole different issue. That's much harder to see their perspective and, have that grace and that forgiveness for them.
Yeah. And what happens is we tend to like compare ourselves with one another on, we don't do apples to apples. So what we'll do is we'll take someone's greatest weakness and compare it to our greatest strength. And it's just we never compare apples to apples, right?
I would never do that.
We never compare the worst part of ourselves with the worst part of someone else, or the best part of ourselves with the best, but we just don't do that. And so that's where self-righteousness comes in. And I think that's why when I started with the Ephesians 2, Paul's tactic, really, he's basically, talking to a church that's having a hard time getting along, because there's two different ethnicities there, two different religious backgrounds and things, and trying to get them to find unity. And so he has to start with the level playing field. Look, you're all broken. Right. You all have sin. You've all offended God. You're all deserving of wrath. You know what I mean? And then he talks about the beautiful truth about, but God loves all of you. You know what I mean? He made a way for all of you. So now here's what it looks like to start living in the church. And so you have to start with a level playing field. And Spurgeon used to say that there's no, like any sin in the world, I'm as close to as a pen is to a piece of paper that it's writing on. And I always thought that, man, that's pretty humble for such a, he's the Prince of Preachers.
Yeah.
Dude's prayer life was off the hook, spent hours and hours and hours, weeks. He actually only wrote his sermons on Saturday nights and spent all week just praying, that was kind of like who
unthinkable.
Unthinkable.
Yeah, seriously.
But for him to be able to say that there's not any sin that he's not close to, you know what I mean? Like that close to. And he would talk about like being in the right circumstances, the right pressure, born in the right family, any one of us could have any sin in our lives. And dude, that's a hard, that's hard for me to even to agree with. And I had a pretty broken past, and I did some pretty awful things in my life. And I'm like, really, any, any sin?
Yeah, because there's some that just seem so I dabble in this, but I would never. I can't associate, I can't bring my mind to a place where I would be close to that sin.
Yeah.
But when you strip away our life experiences, our circumstances, all of the things, and go, well, okay, if in this situation I had gone this way or grown up in this environment instead of this environment,
and this happened to me,
right? Then I could be, and so a lot of times, sex pastor. We'll go back to sexuality for a second here, but I try to start the sexuality conversation with the idea that we're all broken sexually.
Yeah.
So it is that level playing field. For some, they're dealing with like sexual identity. For some, they're dealing with, like porn or just, just like Tinder after Tinder and just getting after it and no self-control or, addiction. That's the word I was looking for. But if we start from the place that we're all broken sexually, like now I'm not looking at someone's sexual brokenness from a place of condescension.
Right.
I'm actually just going, hey, I'm broken too.
We can walk alongside one
like
another.
My brokenness looks a little different than yours, but I'm broken too. And so so just if you take that concept and make it more broadly applicable, right? Just to sin.
Yeah.
It changes the way we view others.
Yeah. And unity requires like beautiful unity, not fake unity. And I didn't get a chance to talk about all of this, but when we talk about unity here, we're not talking about uniformity.
Right.
And I think that's a big problem in the church is because we can't achieve uniformity, we have conflict that's unresolved in there that actually becomes, and this is the language Paul uses in the middle of chapter 2, is dividing lines of hostility or dividing walls of hostility between you. And I wasn't able to get to that because I had to kind of throw that point away a little bit. But Jesus was really passionate about unity in the midst of diversity. He was really, really passionate about that. And I remember in John 17, they call it his high priestly prayer because it's like one of his last prayers before he goes to the cross. And, he's trying to figure out what to do with the disciples and then how the impact the disciples are going to have, not just on that current cultural moment, but for the generations to come. He even starts praying like, and for all who believe because of them. You know, so you and I, like he's praying
we're
for us.
We're included in this prayer.
Yeah. And the central theme of that prayer is unity. Yeah. God, make them one as you and I are one, like protect them from the evil one, causing disunity. But again, unity requires the ability to resolve conflict.
Right.
And Jesus is so passionate about that he actually calls people to reconcile with one another before they're reconciled to God.
Which I've thought about that passage a lot. If you have a issue with your brother, leave your offering at the, and go resolve that issue. Like I've heard that passage a lot, but I hadn't thought about it. So like it's obvious, but it's just so clean. Like the way that you've said is like, no, Jesus is elevating your relationship with someone else above your worship.
That's crazy.
Like that sounds borderline like, is that
heretical.
Heresy?
Yeah.
Can he say that? Is that real?
But he does it a few different ways in Scripture.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and that's the problem with antiquity and first century thinking is it's not as linear as we like to think in the West. Right. And so I would probably say at best he's at worst he's elevating our responsibility towards one another above, to an equal or almost equal playing field with our relationship with God at worst, at the,
what do you think about best, greatest commandment?
Right. Love God, love neighbor.
And they're like inextricably linked.
Correct.
He's not saying like, well, here's number one and here's number two, a distant second. He's like, no, he's like, actually it's just like it.
They're symbiotic. And so it's hard, man, when someone offends you or says something that's hurtful or acts in a way that maybe puts their self-interest above yours. It's actually telling us that it's more important to feel the uncomfort of confrontation than to ignore it. Because when we ignore it, it actually pulls us apart. And this is the misconception about conflict is oftentimes like when conflict is handled well and from good motivations, it actually has the power to unite people.
Stronger than you were before you had the conflict.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I always say, community is forged in conflict, in like a life of being able to hit conflict head on. And we don't like that. Right? Yeah. And that has a little bit to do with consumerism, because we want comfort, and we just, it's messy, it's hard, takes work, and there's no certainty that it's going to work out the way that you want it to.
Well, because it's like, I only can control how I respond to the situation. Yep. So I have this total unknown variable with the other person.
Of course, yeah.
So like going to that absorbing the wound thing, like if I'm going to do that, I got to like be vulnerable towards this person who hurt me.
Yeah.
And actually say that, like, you hurt me when you did this.
That's huge.
Like, that's hard, because I don't trust that the other person is going to respond in kind.
Yeah. Or you're already mad at that person, and now you're giving them more
power and control over
totally.
you. Yeah.
That's it.
You could hurt me even more.
Right. Which is why cruciformity, man, is so, is so important, that we have cross-shaped lives. Jesus legitimately came to give his life away to others. And it's funny, when he comes in riding on the donkey and everyone's waving palm branches the first time, not the image I read in Revelation, but the first time, he was literally going to crucify to the cross.
Right.
And he knew it. Like, he was telling everyone, he knew. They didn't know, but he knew what he was going to do to sacrifice his life for the sake of others. And he knew that the person that nailed, put the nails through his arms and feet, the people that would tore his clothes and spit on him, like, he was doing it for all the people that were tearing him apart.
Right.
That's crazy.
Like, I mean, just
cruciformity.
Yeah. Well, and just that it's all encapsulated on that one phrase from the cross: Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand the gravity of this moment. And like, I struggle to have that posture towards someone who like says something offhanded.
Yeah.
Like, these are people who are murdering him, like killing him.
Yeah. This is a good time for a commercial break.
Ooh.
Good Friday's coming up.
Oh, yes.
This is the perfect time
to
be able to lean into this idea of what Jesus experienced, and just the horror of what the cross actually was, and why it's important for us to identify with that.
And Good Friday services are a little uncomfortable.
They are, yeah, and they should be.
With intentionality, because we should be a little bit
somber.
Yes. Like, Good Friday is good, but it's also terrible.
Oh yeah, it's awful.
And so we should wrestle with the hard things about Good Friday, so that we can celebrate what's good about it and fully appreciate what Jesus did for us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 7:00.
7:00
Friday.
Come. Yeah. And really that was probably the biggest thing on the cutting room floor. The cruciformity thing is a newer idea that I've just been introduced to it in the last year and a half or so. Some people I follow and authors that I read are starting to use this word, and it's coming in a response to, and we'll flesh this out over time, And so I didn't really have anything, because I intentionally was like, hey, I want to introduce this word, and over time as a church we'll talk about it more and more. Yeah. But there is a thing about the church wanting to be in power. And they're so offended about not having power, and not having power over culture and power over things. Yeah, it's like it's Christian nationalism is probably the clearest expression of that.
Expression,
That's this idea.
Absolutely.
And they want power. And Jesus gave away his power. He didn't use power over, which he could have. There was even a point, I didn't get talked about today, there was even a point where his boys were like, hey, dude, are we ready? Like, is it time to take up the sword? And Jesus laughs at him. He's like, dudes, I could have a legion of angels here
Right.
at my word.
I don't need you.
I don't need you. Like,
Yeah.
you guys don't even know how to use a sword.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Peter missed.
You were trying to chop his head off. You got his ear.
You got his ear. Yeah. And Jesus is like, that's not what I'm doing here. And oftentimes I think the church postures herself more like Peter's misunderstanding in the garden, where he's chopping off the ear, than Jesus is laying down of his life on the cross. And I think that that's going to probably be an important conversation for us as a church is what does it look like to live as the weak and the marginalized and the sojourner and the one who doesn't have the power? What does it look like to live a cross-shaped life then? Yeah.
Well, there is something incredibly powerful about giving away your power.
Yeah.
Like I think about, I know you haven't really watched The Chosen, but there's a really good part in The Chosen where they illustrate this really beautifully. And it's the whole idea of like, a Roman centurion could ask you to carry their stuff for a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And you can the way that they acted out is like the disciples are just so incensed by Jesus having to do this. And they get to the mile and Jesus says, we're going to carry your stuff another mile. And these Roman soldiers go from just like, oh, you stupid Jews and just their attitude totally changes. They actually start one of them grabs I'll actually carry this for this second mile. And it's this whole the power actually transferred.
Totally. I love that. I love that they did that, by the way, The Chosen did. Because that's one of my favorite idioms, that Jesus uses because of that image that you just created. It's this power under. There's another phrase where it says, heap hot coals on your enemy's head.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
I want to make them so angry.
Totally.
I heap hot coals on their head.
And that's not it at all. No. It's actually when a guest would leave their home to go be entertained by another guest, their fire would go out. And so their home wouldn't be warm. They didn't have light or whatever. And so when that guest left, the polite thing for the host to do was to give them a little clay container of hot coals so that when they get home, they can have warmth in their home. And so this idea of treating your enemy with the same type of hospitality you would a dinner guest is beautiful. It does something.
But we want to replace that hospitality with hostility.
Totally. You sound like a preacher, man.
I can alliterate with the best of them. Let's go.
Steal that, man. That's good. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. I think this is a good time to move into our next segment here. It is
Just for funsies.
For funsies. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this week I was just thinking about this topic of church hurt, and I was like, sometimes the church gets hurt too. And sometimes it comes out in the form of 1-star Yelp reviews. So I've got some dramatic readings I'd like to give you of 1-star Yelp reviews for churches. I'm calling it Church Yelp Whelp.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Yeah. So here we go. Here's the first one. Now this was I'm giving a full disclosure because it's on the internet.
Okay.
So this was Bree N.
Okay.
And she says this about the Father's House in Vacaville, California.
Vacaville.
Oh, see,
yep.
I don't know. I'm from LA. We never heard of Vacaville.
That's my neck of the woods.
Oh, okay.
Vacaville.
Hey,
Northern
sorry,
Cali.
I didn't mean to be dismissive to the fine people
Come on,
of Vacaville.
we got Vacaville. You're awesome.
All right,
I got
Vacaville.
friends from
Well,
Vacaville.
but you have a church that isn't. This is what Bree says. I like the worship being fun and the messages, but I do not recommend going to any small groups as they favor people and make up lies, plot, and gossip and the whole 9 yards when they kick you out, and why they do not allow the victim to be heard. So be careful, as they don't care about everyone equally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Woo. That's some church hurt, man.
She got kicked out of small group.
Kicked out of small group. How do you get kicked out of small group?
I don't know. And she didn't even get to explain her side.
It was one-sided.
Yeah. I don't know what, maybe she did something crazy. Maybe they did something crazy. 1 star.
Dude, that's, I got this thing where I think every first discipleship class should be all on social awareness. Like, you're not wrong. Totally being self-aware. Never mind. That's poor
another podcast.
Brie. That's for another podcast.
Poor Brie, or poor the Father's house.
We don't know. Who knows?
We don't know. All right, here's the second one. This is by LT.
Okay.
It's St. Barbara's RC Church in Brooklyn, New York. And I think the rest of these are in New York. It starts out with this. LOL, it's true. The bells are annoying. I think it's talking about actual bells, not not a family named the bells.
It has to be like a Catholic
I think it's
St.
like
Barbara.
Yeah. So the bells are annoying. The old ladies here gossip a lot.
Oh.
And I would know because my family is very involved with this church.
Oh, yeah, they just
1
told
star.
It. I love the accusation of gossip on a public forum that's gossiping about the church.
You're literally doing the thing that that's what I think these are hilarious. I'm like, what are we doing here, people?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one here is Marilisa A., Our Lady of Good Counsel Church in Manhattan. She says, honestly, one of the worst masses I've ever been to. Boring, uninspired, sloppy, and irrelevant. 1 star.
Sloppy and irrelevant. That's some strong language.
I feel like if she could give 0 stars, she would.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's hard. I might be sloppy, but hopefully I'm not irrelevant.
Well, I was just like, let's just say, what if their main preacher was sick?
Yeah.
And some poor guy just like jumped in, and maybe he was a little boring. Maybe he was a little sloppy, but he didn't find out till that morning. There's no grace, man. You just don't know.
What is up with that?
Man,
consumerism at its
have a little grace, Marilisa. All right. This one cracks me up. So first of all, this is for the Rock Community Church, not our church, which used to be called the Rock Community Church.
Listeners might not know that we used to be called the Rock. Yeah.
So this one's in Queens, New York. So not us.
Not us.
It says, I was not yet a teen when I saw my beloved movie theater converted into an organization with a name as terrible and horrifically uncreative as the Rock Church, which that one kind of stings a little.
That could be for us.
I know, it really could be for us. For 10 years, I walked by it on my way home from the station. And for 10 years, it looked like a tornado hit it. Apparently, the church will forever be under construction. The thing that bothers me the most are the recruiters.
Oh,
they've got recruiters. Yeah. Constantly, I've been stopped and pressured into giving fake phone numbers to the messengers of God.
Whoa.
Fake phone numbers.
To messengers of God?
Yeah. I mean,
come on.
He's not done.
Yeah.
This is Pearl H. So she's not done.
She's
Pearl.
Not done. Pearl.
The other day, 3 10-year-olds asked me to come back to church and pray with them.
1 star review. Whoa. Good on those 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
Asking Pearl to go in for the messengers.
Pearl's not having it.
God.
She's like, tell you what, let me, instead of going back to pray with you, let me give you my phone number. 867-5309. Like,
that's hilarious. Dude, those are real reviews.
These are real. This is the last one I have.
Okay.
Elizabeth L., Community Church of New York in Manhattan. This is a liberal and very specifically a middle-class clutch of all races. I think she means church.
Okay.
Middle-class church of all races. Intellectually interesting, but cliques abide. And it is actually indifferent to the stranger in its midst.
Whoa.
Outside of their middle-class comfort zone for those too radical or avant-garde or poor or different, there is no authentic welcoming.
Okay.
Minister is often oblivious. but music is good. I was pleased to hear that. Sad, poor use of space. Church is half empty, not on fire. 1-star review.
Well, she's not helping.
No, I know. Like
the church is half empty because you're giving reviews like this.
Yeah. Well, I went to Yelp, and it was like 3 stars average. So I wasn't going to go to that church.
Dang, dude, that's hilarious. By the way, good job. It's funny to hear those things, but in so many ways, it is
a little close to home.
Man, it's close to home, and we live in such a consumeristic society that we now have Yelp reviews on churches, for shopping. And yeah, it's almost like we're packaging and peddling the kingdom of God in ways that look a lot like the way Starbucks markets its own, coffees and stuff. And so I feel bad for the church because, man, we have pressure too to like reach people and stay relevant and all of those things. And then on the other side, as the church, we need to stop being so consumeristic,
Yeah. No, it's true. It's a tightrope.
It is a tightrope. Yeah.
Because there is that component you touched on about like having some people skills and like just understanding people, and like the church should have that.
Totally.
But there's also like, it's not a show.
Yeah.
It's not like I paid to go to a concert.
Yeah.
And I'm giving a review of the performance, but we treat it really similar.
We treat it that way.
Yeah.
Or like, and even on the other hand, for leaders, like it just being a platform for me to, air out all my pet peeves or gather my, cronies of people who think like me. And man, I try to be really careful in how I communicate something that implicates both sides of the conversation. And that's really intentional for me, is because it's that level playing field, man. Like right. I really believe that a part of a pastor's job is to level the cultural playing field to show that all of us need the gospel just as much as the person next to us, and that is the only answer to what ails us as a people and a society is Jesus.
Well, and we don't need it just once.
Yeah. No.
Like that's the evangelical church misconception of the gospel, is like the gospel is really this message of who Jesus is, what he's done, and if you pray a prayer, you can go to heaven. And that's the gospel. But the gospel is like literally something we need every minute, day. Every moment of every day.
Yeah.
That we are redeemed, that God is making us new in him. And it's not anything that we've done to deserve or earn it. It's just God's love for us, that he invites us into making all things new and like partnering with him to do that. Like that to me is the gospel. And when we turn it into this one-time thing, like we're just missing.
Yeah. The boat. And and it's awesome to be able to help the church understand that. Like that's such a privilege for me. Like part of my call and role is to help the church embrace that one simple truth. And like the other day, someone came to me and they asked about so beautifully and sincerely about whether or not we can lose our salvation. And in the middle of that, I stopped and I asked a really simple question. I said, "Hey, what does every person need? Christian or non-Christian? Like, what do they need?" And they thought, and they said, "Well, I guess Jesus."
Good answer.
Yeah, it's like, that's a great answer. And I was like, so what does it matter whether we can lose or not lose our salvation? What we all need every single day is Jesus. We need him. So our goal is to help people get connected to Jesus. And so whatever you think about that theological stance or nuance is a luxury for the ivory tower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what I know is that if you walk in my door as a pastor. And I don't care if you've been going to church for 35 years or you just met Jesus yesterday, or you haven't even met Jesus yet. You guys both need the same thing.
Right.
You need Christ to do saving work in your life, right? To heal, to bring to, you know, so it's like, so what does it matter? Like,
right.
That's a conversation that Christians have with one another that's irrelevant, really, to the world that we live in. It has nothing to do with my presenting of the gospel or the good news, whether you can lose your salvation or you keep it forever. Like,
it's almost like, can God create a rock so big he can't lift it?
Yeah. It's
like, who cares?
Who cares? You need Jesus. Like, you need Jesus. I need Jesus. We need Jesus. And so it's an argument for the sake of being right instead of for the sake of helping people stay, draw near to Christ. And
it's
some
all
people,
about intellectual assent versus like a heart posture that wants to know and love and follow Jesus.
Yeah, and for me, man, the thing I care is I want people more than anything else to hunger and thirst for Christ. So it doesn't change whether you believe in, once saved, always saved, or you can lose your salvation or whatever. It doesn't change anything for me.
Right.
Like, are you hungering for Christ, like in your everyday stuff of life?
Like right now.
Right now, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to spend our time like talking about. So, yeah, that was an interesting conversation I had. And here's the thing, the person was so thankful and relieved. And we had that conversation. I could see all these lights go on, like this person was like, oh, thank you. Like, that was so helpful about why would I have that argument with someone? Like, why does it even matter? Like in the end of the day, what you believe. Like, I geek out on some of those conversations because it's my world. It's like it's my job. It's my world. And
that's water cooler talk.
Yeah, totally. It's fun to talk about those things and maybe come to some good, healthy conclusions about how the Bible presents those types of things. But it is a luxury for the educated. And I guarantee you the average first century Jewish person who was trying to figure out what it means to be reconciled to God did not care about that conversation. That.
Yeah.
But
no.
There's nowhere on the radar.
No. Well, that's a good segue into just like some of my reactions, thoughts from the message. I thought there's this one thing that you said that I thought was really interesting. Not only that you said it, but and I agree with it wholeheartedly, but the response to it I thought was fascinating. So you said the thing behind our planning is health, and God is our goal, not growth. And I love that for a lot of reasons, but one thing that really stood out to me was it was a smattering of applause. Like there was a handful of people that were like, yes, finally, like that's exactly what we should be about. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like there was a whole, maybe another group of people who were just like, I've never heard that before, or like, what does that mean? Or am I okay with that? Like, because growth means some things that are important. Just some people who were just not sure. I felt like not sure what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard one because there is a tension especially in this role that I'm in right now is, I have some responsibilities, not alone. I'm not alone. We have a great team and we have a board of elders and we have, pastors like you that are committed to this church. But part of my role as a lead pastor is to make sure we're not declining, and that we're growing as a church. Like, there's a total reality. Like we have employees we have to pay and we have lights and buildings we have to put on, and that all of that has to do, obviously you can't put an organization like this on a few people's shoulders. We got to share the load. We need more people to help with that. And so there's responsibilities that we have there. But when it comes to growth strategies, I think we can aim towards gathering crowds, or we can aim towards fostering health. And my heart is going to be aimed for fostering health and trusting that God will bring the people who need to come here, help keep the lights on, help our employees be, have salaries and, all those types of things. And also, I once heard that whatever you attract people with, you keep people with.
Yeah.
And I think we have enough capacity in our staff right now and enough talent and enough charisma in our staff to draw big crowds if we really wanted to. If that was our goal. Like, I really do think we could, even have more people here than we have coming right now, because we're having a little growth spurt, which is awesome in right now. And it's neat to see this place buzzing again after a little lull, after a season of lull, But I don't think it's because we have employed some growth strategy.
Right.
I think it's because we've been thoughtful. We're trying to please God. We're having conversations about health. We've even made some really particular decisions about how we treat our staff and volunteers, based on principles that we think look more like Jesus and not like the world, and things like that, that maybe even hurt us.
Yeah.
In the long run, in some areas.
They don't scale as easily.
They don't scale as easily. And so we're making those decisions, and I think God's going to do what he's going to do there. And man, I don't know. I just think all of it's a good conversation. It's important for our people to see.
Yeah.
And it can be scary to trust God. It can be scary to trust God. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It's funny and I've shared this with you before, but, at various seasons throughout my vocational ministry, working for a church, and even like a year ago, let's say, I could just objectively, because I'm a creative person and, you look at what other people are doing, I could objectively look at churches in the area and go, well, the product that we're putting out there is better than a number of other churches' product. But those churches are growing at varying rates.
Yeah.
And we were not.
Yeah.
And so you when you're in a role like I have, because it's all about beauty and creativity and helping people connect through their different senses and their voices, and you look at that and you go, gosh, what is the value of the work I do? What is God doing? Even to where you ask questions like you touched on in your sermon, is there some kind of hidden sin that's happening in our church that's why we're not growing, And so there is this temptation, or I don't know if that's the right word, but there's this something being on a church staff where there's this you're trying to manufacture the presence of God in the lives of people.
Yeah.
And it's a really hard thing to just lay those things down, lay the strategies down.
Yeah.
And just trust God and say, look, you know what? I think we're just going to worship you.
Yeah.
And invite others to be a part of that, and try to be a people who look like the people of God.
Yeah.
And I still care a lot about beauty, and I care a lot about the aesthetics and, things, not being distracting and bad.
Yeah.
But you do kind of lay down some of those things. And what I find is the pressure is much lower because it's not on me whether or not God's going to show up. Because it never was anyways,
Totally.
But that's the way we position this stuff.
Yeah.
Instead, it's just no, it is about trusting God, but there is a scary component to that. Will God meet our needs? Whether that's true for the church as an organization, but just for people
individually. Yeah.
Yeah. Is God going to meet my needs if I trust him? If I don't do the unethical thing that could lead to a bunch of money
Yep.
or whatever, you know, like fill in the blanks, you know? And so there is a real tension, I think, that
trusting God's
churches deal
always hard.
Yeah.
And especially when there's a public facing organization like the church where, you know, the community is swims, man. It swims in product placement and strategic, you know, customer relations and, you know, all of these things. And it's being formed by those things every day. And if the church is not aware of that, it could posture itself in a way that's just irrelevant to people, you know? And so there are things that we have to consider, like, man, so for me, it's like, yeah, I don't, when things are distracting, you know, or done in a way that seems like we don't care, you know, those things bug me because I do care. Like I care how people experience our church from the moment they drive in the parking lot to the moment they come through that front door. Like, man, I care deeply about those things, but not because those people are our customers, but because those things actually say something or reflect the heart of God and the kingdom of God manifest here on this earth. And that's the difference. That's the motivational change. I do care about aesthetics. I like our lights and our haze and the beauty of the things that we can create because of that. And this is no different. I mean, in our day, it's lights and haze, and in the early church day, it was stained glass, and you know, it was scarlet, you know, fabric and gold. You know, gold. What was it called? The rope that would come. Like these things aesthetically communicated something about God's love for beauty and creativity, and you know, all those types of things. And so I love all that stuff. Today I said I hate the stage, and it's not because I hate the stage. Yeah, I hate what the stage has become in culture. Right. I love the fact that we're able to have a stage where online folks, we have people who are shut-ins who can only watch online. We have people who are exploring us for the first time, and it's safer for them just to check us out online. I love that we have all the stuff that we have, so that people have access to the gospel. But the moment those things are treated as a consumer product instead of a like a faithfulness to like the beauty in the kingdom of God, it gets all twisted up.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And it messes with leaders.
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, the platform can be addicting, man.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it can become a thing where all of a sudden the way we treat people, instead of viewing them as, you know, created in God's image, just loved, and like, we don't treat them like that. We treat them like pawns that we can move on the chessboard to our liking so that we can get the desired result, which really, again, it goes back into like feeding ego and, you know, having a great production.
Right.
All the consumeristic things.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this conversation with Paul Church I asked him to preach on Mother's Day, and he was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you?" And I was like, "Is it like this is a special day?"
Ground.
You know, they're like, "Yeah, holy ground."
He usually gets to preach on holidays, but it's the ones that no one's in town.
No one's in town.
Yeah, that's our joke.
And
with
I was
him,
like,
actually.
I was like, dude, I'm asking you to preach because like I love your voice. I think you're a gift to the community, and it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if it's me or him or whoever that's there today. Our church is our church, and whoever's up there is going to get a taste of who we are. And so I just, personality driven or, you know, it's just, man, that's the world's view of it. And again, I love excellence. I want to do things right. Sure. I study during the week. I don't wing it, you know, it's like, I'm not.
Yeah. We don't, the band doesn't show up having never practiced. Totally. We don't no, we put
the effort into it because we love it.
We care. And it does communicate something about how much we care and how God cares.
Totally.
Yeah. That's good. Another thing, just the whole Revelations 21, like the all things new vision. And you said this, you said it in the pre-service, and then you said it in your prayer in the actual service. We want the church to be so beautiful that people would want the gospel and Jesus to be true.
Mm.
And that stood out to me because I've been in situations where it felt the opposite.
Totally.
You know,
Me too,
like where somebody I'm having a conversation with someone I love, care deeply about, and they're basically telling me how the choices that they've made that are sinful choices are good and I should bless them. And that they're happy and that they're fulfilled in the choices they're making. And, you know, like all these good things, God's blessing me. But the things that they're saying are like so contrary to what the scriptures say about what's right and good. And I've literally found myself in these conversations where I go like, I wish I could like do that. I wish I could bless what you're saying or where you're going or these life choices that you're making. But man, I look at the scriptures. I look at like what God is saying and doing. I can't. And so it's like, I want this lie that you've grabbed a hold of as truth. I want it to be true because you're so happy and I want to bless this happiness that you have, but I can't do it. And so like, it made me think of those conversations and go, man, I don't know that I've been in a conversation though, where it was the opposite. And someone's like, I don't know about this whole Christianity thing, but man, your church is so different. You're so different. Like that, like, I hope it's true. Like that would be an incredible conversation to be a part of.
Yeah.
As opposed to
those opposites. Yeah. Oh, dude, I'm having so much thoughts about what you're saying right now. Like, dude, it's funny, the story about where Jacob robs his father's blessing from his brother
it's
Esau.
Gross, actually.
You know?
Like just the way,
the story's gross.
Like,
he's got like goat hair
on his
stuck
gross.
to his thing. It's just a weird story, but yeah, man, I think I think we're going to be shocked. One is the blessings of God fall on the righteous and the unrighteous alike all the time, every day.
Right.
Every day
which is hard to wrap your head around.
It's hard to wrap our head around that. Yeah, that we that people who are intentionally disobeying or rejecting God and the good news can still experience something of the blessings of the divine. You know, like that's just whether it's through feeling fulfilled in a relationship or you know, in certain behavior or the way they gain wealth or even whatever that situation is. So blessings come from all different types of things. I think in that it's a posture where, dude, we look nothing like the world. And, dude, we have this posture right now that is fully based on people that in order for certain people to win, other people have to lose.
Right.
And Jesus won by losing.
Right.
It was opposite. And that's what I mean, having such a compelling like picture of Christianity that doesn't require hypocrisy, doesn't require the ways of the world, doesn't require, you know, greed and wealth and power, people to take power instead of give it away. Like that's what I mean by having a compelling picture of people who are kind and accepting, while at the same time having very real kingdom ethics that govern their decisions and lifestyles and, you know, all of those things, but being able to embody those things without an ounce of pride or lording it over someone else or thinking you're better than someone else or, you know, whatever that case, almost in a way of like being able to embody those ethics while still blessing people who choose to reject them.
Yeah.
Like, which has to happen all the time. In like in our world. And I don't think God's opposed to that. And I don't think, man, I want the world, whether they reject God or embrace him, to experience the goodness and the generosity and the grace of him.
Yeah.
You know, like I think one of the big thing is the LGBTQ community. It's so antithetical to God's posture towards sexuality. And yet I don't have any qualms with showing kindness and love and acceptance to people who struggle with, their sexual identity or their gender identity.
No, I have more trouble with people who can't.
Totally. Yeah.
Way more trouble.
Way more trouble.
That offends me. But to be able to love, like, and to start conversations like that. Like I hate like affirming, non-affirming. I hate that language because it's like, I am affirming of people.
Yeah.
Like I affirm you as a person who's created in God's image, loved by him, like all those things. And like to say not affirming is just to slap this label on you that says like, I'm not for you. That couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I'm so for you. I see like God has a different design for sexuality that I want you to experience and thrive in.
Yeah.
And I want that for you because I'm for you. Like, it all comes from this posture of being for someone.
Yeah.
As opposed to the rhetoric that we so often see out of the church, which is like, there's the real extreme, like, Westboro Baptist picketing and terrible. Yeah. I literally was like, oh no, I can't say what they put on those like signs.
Yeah.
But like, that's not the way of Jesus either.
Yeah. 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 And I think people are afraid that if we associate with the broken, that means that we are condoning their behavior.
Just like Jesus, wait.
Never, and I think it's like anytime you have to like put that qualification in there, you're already missing the posture of Jesus. Jesus didn't go around and be like, hey, you can come to my dinner table, but just so you know, I don't like that you drink, or I don't like that you worship this God, or I don't like that you are homosexual, or I don't like. He didn't have to do that.
No.
And one of my favorite scenes in Scripture is Jesus goes through this series of woe to the rich. Because all these warnings to the rich people, right? Woe to the rich for this. You're worse than, this, chorizing and this and that. And you like, he gives all of these warnings to the rich, even freaks his disciples out. And they're like, well, who then can be saved? Like it's impossible.
Like, this is hard.
And then the very next scene is Jesus inviting Zacchaeus to a meal.
A rich man.
A rich man. I love that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and Jesus goes out of his way to pursue the very thing that he would just spent all of his time condemning, know? And like, I think that's a posture that is incredibly beautiful. And it wasn't the woe-tos that got Zacchaeus to change his mind. It was the Zacchaeus, we're eating a meal at your house tonight.
Yep.
That's what grabbed the heart of Zacchaeus. And that's what I hope in that moment where Zacchaeus shared a meal with Jesus and he was like, man, I want the kingdom of God to be true. I want it so bad. I'm willing to like give all this
everything
to check this out and pursue this. And so like that's the posture.
I love that. That's good. Well, I think it's time for your low-key obsessions. We have a drop now for that too.
Let him cook. It's time for David's low-key obsession.
Okay, so a little sneak peek, insider. You get if you're a part of our podcast community, you get a little insider information. But this summer, we're gonna do Love Where I Live Sunday, and we're canceling church.
I get a day off.
Yeah, you get a day off. You don't.
I really don't.
But
it's probably more work. Actually,
I'm joking. We cancel church, but actually, we're gonna actually be the church in a different way, and we're gonna meet here on that Sunday morning, and then we have a bunch of different creative ways that we're just going to be present, be a blessing to our community. So we're going to do some like canvassing and prayer walking and connect with the neighborhoods. We're going to send armies of like lawn care people out to people who are having trouble keeping their lawns up and just bless communities that way. We've been talking about doing like some free lemonade stands, like just doing it just because you love people. And so my obsession is that we're doing this as a church. I'm just so stoked. I'm nervous about it, but I'm like, I really want to get it through our hearts and minds that the church isn't just a place you go on Sunday, but it's who we are as the people of God together. And so that's really, really important to me. But I'm obsessed with all the ideas that people are having about how to bless our community. Yeah. And so like just in the little conversations that we're having, people like are geeking out on different ways that like we can be a blessing.
Simple, small ways.
Totally. Simple, small ways. Doesn't have to be extravagant or over like, cost a bunch of money or whatever, but simple, small ways. So I'm just, I love our people. I love the fact that we have people who get excited about being a blessing to our community and really want to serve, want to take the posture of a servant. So
you could say you're low-key obsessed with it.
Low-key obsessed.
Yeah. With people who have that posture.
Totally.
Yeah.
Low-key obsessed. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Which means I really dig it. That's my language in the 70s.
Right.
I dig
all
it.
you Gen Xers.
Yeah, Gen Xers.
Yeah, you really dig it.
I really dig it.
Yeah. All right, so then last thing to kind of put a bow on this. Like, man, church hurt, like being the church, being in a healthy way, like, and how do we do this in real life? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. And this is probably the biggest regret of my sermon is I had a bunch of stuff to talk about, like the practical applications of that, which I didn't. And we don't have even enough time to get it all out here. But over the course of my time here, next 15 years, we'll address it. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. And I have a lot of time. I'm not going anywhere, all that to say. But there's a reality that community hurt, the only thing that can heal it is community. And so oftentimes what happens, and that's just the human nature, so it doesn't matter what you do. You either, what happens is you either get hurt in the church and instead of resolving it there in that community, you go find a different type of community. It could be the bar, it could be a soccer team, it could be whatever, like with sports of it. You find some other community to heal the wounds of community. That's just the nature of it. Because the bottom line is we are a people who was made from community, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, made in the image of God. We're made from community and we're made for community. It's not good for people to be alone. It's not, we were designed for deep connection with one another. So we will find healing in community if we've been hurt from community. And I just want people to recognize that.
Yeah.
My hope or my invitation is they would love the church so much. They would love God's plan for the world so much that they would be willing to go through the painful process of getting healed in the community they were wounded in. And that's a hard ask. Dude, I'm telling you. And to be honest, it's maybe not even always the right thing to do. Sometimes you might need to go find another community to go heal from. And
there are bad, unhealthy, toxic church environments.
Yeah, and I don't ever want to promote that type of
we don't, and we would not advocate like go back to that toxic church.
No.
Find healing.
Yeah. But if it is something like a relational strain or a disagreement or a mishandled situation or stuff, like, man, go through the biblically prescribed motions to try to restore that relationship. And then if it doesn't work out, don't give up on the church because people were involved in wounding you in the church. The church is not like a thing. It's the people of God coming together, and there might be a church community that wasn't a right fit and you move on, but don't give up on the church because of that. The vision for the church is absolutely compelling, and it's breathtaking, that and I didn't get to talk about this either, but like God, God oftentimes uses the same source to be the solution for healing and repair. And so, for example, the whole biblical story is through Eve came sin, and through Mary came the Savior.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And Paul in his patriarchal way picks up on this with Adam, right? Through one man, sin entered in the world. Through one man, sin is atoned for. It's just the pattern that God has for it. And so he wants to use the broken things of this world to actually be the source of beauty and repair. And so we got to give ourselves over to that. And so that would be my first biggest thing to consider. What that requires is that we learn how to have hard conversations with each other that's motivated by love.
Well, yeah. And those two components are like essential.
Yeah.
Because I know people who are so conflict averse that they never resolve any of the conflicts in their life. And their life is like a little bit of a landmine field, And so that's one issue. But then if you're the kind of person who's not conflict averse, but doesn't know how to have that conflict in love,
yeah,
and from that posture, well, their life's a landmine field too. In different ways, it's not unresolved conflict. It's like everywhere there's these like explosions happening, And so, yeah, like how do we do that? How do we have both?
Yeah. Well, one is I think we need a community that. I think the biggest thing is just being honest about the problem. And oftentimes churches try to act like there's no conflict. So when people do experience conflict, it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. And we need to like normalize conflict.
Yes.
We need to do that in our families. You need to do that in your marriage relationships. We need to do that with our kids. Like we need to normalize conflict because, beautiful things are come out of or forged in seasons of conflict. And if we run from it, we're never actually going to experience the beauty of change, the beauty of reconciliation, the beauty of grace. And so, if you think about forgiveness is forgive one another, right? One of the one another's in Scripture.
Yeah. That
only happens as if there's conflict. You cannot be obedient to Scripture
unless there's conflict.
Like I've just put it that way. And so we just got to normalize it. And you got to recognize that coming into a church, you're going to have conflict. And bravery or courage looks like being able to address those conflict head on, having hard conversations, checking yourself before you wreck yourself. That whole thing, like in it, like don't, look, he's not saying don't have a hard conversation. He's just saying, look, make sure there's not a giant glaring log or hypocrisy in your own eye before you start trying to help your brother with their speck or whatever. Also, don't make an offense bigger than it actually is. And I think that we see that a lot in the church as well. Like people take really small things and make it big things, and it's because they're being selfish or self-centered or self-righteous or whatever. Like it's okay for small conflicts to happen and have that conversation. Like, hey, you said this in this way, it hurt my feelings.
Right.
And man, maybe that says more about me than it does about you and your heart, but I don't want there to be anything between us. And so, hey, can we have that conversation? And
well, that's the posture that's helped me a lot is, I can be opinionated. I have ideas about whether it's like strategic ideas about what the church should do, shouldn't do, whether it's, whatever. Just I'm full of opinions. I've got a lot of them. How long do we have? But like for me, I've had many conversations with people that's just like, look, hey, I know we don't agree on this topic, but are we good?
Mm-hmm.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
Because I care more about my relationship with you than I care about the outcome of this argument or this decision that needs to be made, whatever it is. And so like to put people ahead of our positions
huge
is massive. And, you know, like I literally went through a season where I just couldn't do that. You know, like I just couldn't. I had just a number of different like frictional conversations I was having with people. And I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't let go of my positions. And I was listening to a podcast, and they basically said, like, if you care, like, you need to let go of the outcome of these conversations that when you're having hard conversations, and it'll transform the conversations. Yeah. And so I did that. And it did. It changed all those conversations. Because at the end of the day, I care more about like you and me than I care about whatever. If it's a church thing, you know, do we go left or do we go right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not as important as us being unified and like being brothers and going through it together, you know? And so I think that's really powerful. And I think too, like, if we can just create space for people, like, to say, you hurt me, without lashing back out in defense. Yeah. You know, like, that's the most natural posture, by the way, too. Yeah. Somebody says, you hurt me. Mine, like, well, you did this to me. And like, instead of it turning into that, like, what if our first response was like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt you. Yeah. You know, rather than offense. And so, like, how do we create that space where we can just be vulnerable, be honest?
And and I think a little bit of what you're tapping into is there is not just a responsibility for the person that offends someone, but also for the offended. Yeah. To pattern their offense after Jesus. And so, like, one of the things it's really hard to have empathy for the offender. Yeah. So think about being the offended. For me to put myself in that person's shoes, like, one of the phrases that really helped me is hurt people. Yeah. You know, that was just a phrase. It started to give me empathy for the offender that that was there. And there's certain, I tell people, man, don't feed your offense, because sometimes, and sometimes you cause your offense to grow, and gossip does this a lot, right? Where you're offended, and then you go and talk to everybody but the person that offended you. And now you feed your offense. That thing starts to grow and fester in your heart, and that thing turns from what was just a genuine hurt to bitterness to unforgiveness to, you know, it can really grow inside of you. And so you have to be really careful not to feed your offense through gossip.
Well, and I never read this book, full disclosure, but there was a group of men back at Faith Mountain who were doing a study, and the name of the book was Unoffendable. Yeah. Yeah. I never read the book.
Read it, I heard like, it was good. Yeah.
Recommend it or not recommend it really, but the concept, huge. Like, I never lost the name of that book, the concept of it. I didn't even have to read the book. Yeah. I just had to go, oh gosh, man, what if I wasn't so offended by everything people said? Yeah. How would that change my relationships? And so it's something that I have kind of grabbed a hold of and just gone, you know, I'm going to try not to be so easily offended.
Yeah. And man, this happens in at work, you know, like we got
it's not just a church thing.
It's not just church thing. It happens in all other in our neighborhoods with our neighbors, our actual neighbors, of just really trying to, like, you know, do that. In my neighborhood, I get ticked because our neighbors have like 1 million cars. And so there's like always cars parked in front of our neighborhood everywhere. And we don't live in an HOA, which is beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
And
so can they.
Yeah, so can they. But then I have all of these like imaginary conversations in my head about like talking to my neighbors about like the thing, and it shows you how ridiculous I am. Yeah. This is the type. But seriously, this is the type of stuff that's almost like the church world too. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, you're parking in front of my house and it's driving me nuts, you know, type of deal. It's an irritant. It's not really even an offense.
Right. What is it? what is it doing to you actually?
Exactly.
Nothing.
And I had to
It's just
walk
irritating.
myself off of the cliff of
Right.
dude, consider them. They have a bigger family than you. Their kids are, you know what I mean, at that driving age, and you're not, you know what I mean? And
But do
you're
they
not
have
there
to
yet.
park in front of my house like that? I get that. Like I have people who park in front of my house. Sometimes I'm like,
Why?
there's all this space in front of your house. What are we doing? Yes,
Yeah, so-
but it's a microcosm of
this
this-
idea.
Yes, that we shouldn't be offended by these things, and really just like sometimes, like I don't even need to have a conversation with someone to forgive them. Because I'm
Totally.
forgiving them for something that was stupid in my own head that they didn't even do. I just thought
You
it
had to
through.
work it out. Yeah, you had
I
to
just had to
work it
think it
out.
through and go, oh, I think that's actually on me.
Yeah.
Like I don't think they were trying to offend me. I don't think. Yeah, I'm good, and then I can move on.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, really good, man. Appreciate the conversation today, and appreciate you guys for sticking with us.
What's happening next week?
Ooh, next, is there something going on next week?
There's a few things going on next week.
Few things going
Excited
on
about it.
next week. Yeah, big Easter Sunday. So come hang out with us. 8:30, 10 o'clock.
Yep.
2 different services to choose from, and man, I think it's going to be a pretty incredible day of worship.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be great. And it is, just the 2 service thing. I think we're gonna have a lot of people here and get to hear the good news and talk about the gospel through the eyes of Thomas. I'm excited about.
Can I believe?
Can I believe? And we're going to talk about doubt and
Yep.
how doubt is actually can be a really beautiful thing, and really actually help us in our faith rather than scare us away from it.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, tune
And then
in next
Friday.
week
Good Friday. Don't forget Good Friday.
and come on Good Friday
Yeah.
and Easter, and tune in next week. We love you. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Centered. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. You can listen to Centered on your favorite podcast platform or watch on YouTube. To learn more about Mosaic or connect further, visit us online at welcometomosaic.com. See you next week.